It's the final race of the weekend for the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in Kent. The Garden of England is looking a little overcast, but thankfully still dry today after what has been an entertaining day of racing. The first Formula 3 race of the day earlier on certainly gave us a fair amount to talk about and has shifted the dynamic of the championship quite considerably after not a great weekend so far for the erstwhile championship leader. The track temperature is up on what it was this morning, though. It is noticeably a little bit warmer out there today, and the action on track should be plenty hot enough when we go racing for the final time for 14 laps. Hopefully we'll get the full 14 laps in this time. We had a red flag in the earlier race that meant that we had a slightly shortened restart, but it certainly wasn't short on action. The championship is moving into the middle part now of this slightly shortened season, and therefore the championship points started to become more and more crucial. And Cush Miney, despite the fact that he hasn't won a race yet this year, is now leading the championship on 192 points, and he is 15 points clear now of Kian Jewis in second place. And let's take a look back then, shall we, at that first race this morning and see exactly how we ended up in this point situation coming into the final race of the day. Well, it took two attempts to get the race going, really. On the first start, Ayrton Simmons from pole held on to the lead, but his teammate alongside him, Josh Skelton for Chris Dipman Racing, did not get away well. Sassacorn Chimencoll came through into second, whilst Ulista Power in the blue and white 55 car got a good start, but then ended up in the gravel coming out of Paddock Hill Bend. He rejoined the pack alongside the new championship leader, Cush Miney, and immediately tried to fight back against the Indian driver to try and pick his way back through the order. There was the usual 2 and 3 wide jockeying for position in the midfield. Caleb Frederick, the blue car with the yellow highlights, was the championship leader, joint championship leader actually, with Cush Miney going into that race. He was racing yesterday's winner, his teammate Nazim Asman, on the opening lap, as Tapau set about trying to get past Cush Miney to work his way back towards the front. So it was a clean start, although a lot of side-to-side action, and then there was big trouble for Ulista Power. Something broke on the right rear corner. He went rearwards into the barrier, and as the safety car was called, some drivers saw the yellows and others didn't. Caleb Frederick into the back of one of the high-tech cars, and then Piers Pryor tried to take advantage of that and went up the inside of Frederick, hit him, and unfortunately they both clattered into the side of Manaf Hijawi's car. All three were out. The red flag was thrown to pick up the 4 cars in total from the side of the track, and on the restart Simmons did lead a 1-2 for CDR because Josh Skelton got off the line much better the second time. So did Cush Miney, who went third, but then Kian Jewis went round the outside from 5th to take that third place away into Druids Corner. Then there was a lock-up for Miney though, and as he drifted out wide, Jewis ran wide in avoidance and gifted the place straight back to the Indian driver, who got himself into a podium place that he would hold to the flag. After that, things did settle down a little bit. It was harder to overtake once the race settled into a rhythm. That suited CDR pretty well though. They got a 1-2 finish with Ayrton Simmons taking his second victory of the weekend, and Josh Skelton in second place. The final podium place went the way of Cush Miney, and that means that with Caleb Frederick not scoring because of his second non-finish of the weekend, Cush Miney now has the championship lead all to himself. It's been an unmitigated disaster really for Caleb Frederick this weekend. The 3-time race winner has had 2 non-finishes and a 12th place, so he has scored very few points so far this weekend, and the grid for this final race is based upon the fastest race lap time from each driver over the previous 3 races. So whichever your fastest lap was in any of those races, that's the one that counts towards the grid for this one. And so we've got a slightly jumbled order again. Caleb Frederick though towards the back of it as we go into the 4th and final race of the weekend. Well, they can see Ulista Power's car. That's been repaired nicely despite the fairly sizable shunt that he had. But those Tech Pro barriers that are lining the circuit up at Clearways did a good job of absorbing the impact, and the Douglas Motorsport team have done a good job of getting the car repaired, and he's back out there again now for the 4th and final race of this weekend. Now the others that were in strife, I don't think their cars were too badly damaged, so hopefully they should be able to get their cars out there as well. Lots of spectators on hand, all socially distancing though around the track. Racetracks thankfully are quite spacious places, so they are all able to enjoy their racing in a safe environment, and it's good to have their ongoing support in this delayed 2020 season. But once we've got it going, it's been really entertaining. The British F3 Championship looking more competitive than ever it seems. This is the man who apparently at the moment is not signed up for a full season. There are a couple of rounds that he might not be able to do, but I'm really hoping Kushmani does stick around for a full year, because my word, he looks quick. He's yet to win a race, but he's had 6 podium finishes so far over the first 10 rounds of the championship. So Kush has just been wonderfully consistent. He's only had 2 finishes outside the top 10. When you factor in all of these reverse grids and things that we do in Formula 3, that's all the more impressive. Also notice that he starts in pole position. He has sticker tyres there on the front of the car, so he's been able to save a fresh set of tyres now for this final race of the weekend. So Kushmani then will have the pole position. Alongside him will be Ayrton Simmons. Now, Simmons has 2 race wins today, this weekend I should say, with the first race yesterday, finished only 15th, I think it was, 15th in race number 2, but then won race number 3 from the front of the grid again. Ayrton, though, is making his first appearance of the season. Well, he's already 14th in the points, despite only competing in 3 of the 10 races so far. So Ayrton Simmons, who I don't think is going to be around for a full season from now on, but he has really shown everyone just how quick he can be in these Formula 3 cars. Of course, we saw that from him in 2019 as well. He lines up on the outside of row 1, and then Ulista Powell, who thankfully had set a quick lap time in one of the early races, and so that non-finish that he had in race number 3 hasn't hurt him quite as much as it otherwise could have. He lines up 3rd on the grid with Louis Foster alongside him. But Horston's up there as well. It's definitely a jumbled order compared to the grid that we had for the race earlier on today, with lots of quick drivers coming from the back. Piers Pryor has won a race this year. He starts last. Caelan Fredericks won 3 races and starts second to last. And Nazim Azman won yesterday, but starts only 11th, the Carlin driver, who is in the top 5 in the championship standings. So Kushmani took the championship lead in the previous race, and he's on pole position for this final race. He could leave Brands Hatch about 20 or so points clear of everyone else, but there is the small matter of a 14-lap race around the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch standing between him and that comfortable championship lead, and we've seen already how unpredictable the racing has been this weekend. Very close as well. No race really has been dominated by anyone. The first race yesterday, Ayrton Simmons won by half a second. It was a 7/10 of a second cushion for Nazim Azman over Rhys Ushijima in yesterday's second race. And the race earlier on, 1.3 seconds was the biggest winning margin so far. Kushmani then on pole position, the Indian driver, the championship leader, with Ayrton Simmons, the championship returnee, alongside him on row number 1, high-tech ahead of Chris Dittman Racing. Then on the second row of the grid is Ulista Powell, Douglas Motorsport, and Double R's Louis Foster lines up alongside him. Row number 3 of the grid for Bart Horston, the exciting Australian driver Kian Jewis, who had that great start on the second attempt to start race 3. He lines up 6th on the grid ahead of Sasakon Chimancol and Rhys Ushijima, rounding out row number 4. Josh Skelton and Oliver Clark are on the 5th row of the grid, and then on row number 6 we've got Nazim Azman, race winner this weekend, and Benjamin Pedersen in the Double R car lines up 12th. 7th row of the grid for Josh Mason, Manaf Hijawi is alongside him. He was caught up in that Piers Pryor, Caelan Frederick incident. And speaking of those two, the 2 drivers who have tangled twice this weekend, Caelan Frederick and Piers Pryor, I think it's fair to say they're not on each other's Christmas card lists at this point, and they're sharing the back row of the grid. So keep an eye to the back maybe for a few fireworks from those two. So field making its way around on the green flag lap then. This fantastic circuit, Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, but you do kind of have to take advantage of any early opportunities to get past people, because once everyone gets up to speed and the tyres are all equalised, the high downforce nature of these single-seaters makes it quite tricky to follow closely behind other people. And that can sometimes mean that overtaking is at a premium, but it can be done. We've seen that over the years. We've seen some great races here over the years for the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship. Piers Pryor really working hard to warm up his front tyres. So he lines up alongside Caelan Frederick at the back of the grid. So Caelan Frederick then, who came out of the blocks really well at Alton Park with 2 race victories. He had another win and a second at Donington last time out. But really, his undoing was qualifying this weekend, because he never qualified outside the top 3 until yesterday, when he qualified 15th after a problem in that qualifying session, and that really is put him back in the pack. He was off the road in race 1, only 12th in race 2, and a non-finish in race 3. So Caelan Frederick again starting 15th this time. That's exactly where he started that first race that he did not finish, so he'll be hoping just to get to the end of this one, with Kushmani, the championship leader, on pole position as well. Kalen has every bit the motivation to get towards the front. Here we go then for the fourth and final time this weekend. The BRDC British Formula 3 Championship is in action at Brands Hatch. The red lights go out, away they go. Good start made by Miney, good start made by Louis Foster as well. To the outside of a slow starting Ed Simmons. He's been swallowed by the pack already. Ed Simmons must have a problem. The car's not accelerating, and the double winner from earlier on this weekend is out before we even get to turn one. It's Miney that leads the way. Ulysses Powell second, Foster third, Jewis fourth, and Bart Horston fifth on the inside of Sasagorn Chime and goal. Locking up side-by-side action further back. They all avoid contact just about. Caelan Frederick looks like he's gained some positions in the blue and yellow Carling car towards the tail of the field, but Kushmani has done exactly what he needed to do. He got off the line well, and Simmons did not, and so it's Miney with the lead. There is Frederick, well picked out. He's ahead of Josh Mason, he's ahead of Ollie Clark, and he's ahead of one of the Douglas cars there. That'll be Hijawi, so that's 3 cars he's overtaken, and he was ahead of Piers Pryor. Anyway, side by side down, Pilgrim's drop there. That is Nazim Asman losing a place here, I think, or about to anyway, to the 24 car of Benjamin Pedersen, but no, Asman fights back round the outside. The next corner's a right-hander again, but Asman gets into it first, and Caelan Frederick now, who's possibly got fresher tyres than those around him, simply because he hasn't completed as many miles this weekend. He could have some good grip here. He's certainly using it well already to work his way almost onto the tail of his teammate. Out of Sterling's then for the first time. It is generally a clean first lap. I don't know where Ed Simmons went to. Oh, he limped back to the pit lane, you can see out the window. So Ed Simmons is off the road. No need for an early safety car, but that is a massive shame for the returning driver, who's been man to beat so far this weekend. Across the line they go then. Kushmani leads the opening lap by nearly 3/4 of a second over Ulysses Powell second, Louis Foster third, Kian Jewis fourth, Bart Horston, one of the few drivers to stay in his grid position, in 5th place, and then 6th place right behind him, Sasagorn Chime. There they go into Druid's corner, and then it is Rhys Shijima and Caelan Frederick there having a look at the inside of Benjamin Pedersen. So this is for 10th position, so this is important then. 10th place would score him 11 points if he could get it. You score points wherever you finish in British Formula 3. The top 20 finishers still score points in every race, or in most of the races. In the reverse grid races, it's the top 15. We only have 16 cars here this weekend, so you're almost guaranteed to score points. Caelan Frederick, though, wants to make sure he scores as many as he can. Piers Pryor, there, was having a go with his teammate Josh Mason. The 2 Lannon cars, I think, were side by side heading down Pilgrim's Drop. Piers Pryor, the Alton Park reverse grid race winner. Did he go through? No, he didn't. The white car with the pink highlights is Piers, still behind the white and red of Josh Mason. So now things start to settle down a bit, but there are many drivers deep in the field here who really need to make forward progress, so they're going to fight. Oh, the safety car's out. Why do we have a safety? Manaf Hijawi hasn't come through at the end of the first lap, so I spoke too soon, and there he is, stopped at Pilgrim's Drop, is that? Yes, I think it is. So I missed that when we saw the cars come through there last time. So Manaf Hijawi, who was caught up in the contact with Piers Pryor and Caelan Frederick behind the safety car in the previous race, which brought out the red flag. The car is out. Whether that's a legacy of that contact, I don't know, but either way, we are under safety car conditions again. This hopefully shouldn't lead to a red flag though, because everyone has seen the safety car boards this time, and we can slow the field down at a controlled pace. So Miney's nearly 9/10 of a second lead that he had over Ulysses Powell has disappeared. Louis Foster third, Kian Jewis fourth, Bart Horston fifth, Sasagorn Chime 6th, 7th for Rhys Shijima, 8th for Josh Skelton, 9th Nazim Asman, and Benjamin Pedersen in 10th position, and then it's Caelan Frederick 11th, Ollie Clark 12th, Josh Mason 13th, and Piers Pryor 14th, with Simmons in the pits, and Hijawi stranded at the side of the track. You see the sun starting to shine down now as we are behind the pace car, and the temperature definitely starting to go up, and so those who have fresh tyres could definitely benefit. Here's the start. Simmons' car goes, but then it's like it won't change gear. I think he gets stuck in first gear there. Oh, very nearly rear-ended by one of the other Chris Dittman racing cars there. That will have been Josh Skelton, wouldn't it, who was nearly into the back of him. Josh Skelton, who finished second behind his teammate in the previous race. Then Skelton had a close moment with Ishijima through Druids. And as the field went down the hill, side by side there, Benjamin Pedersen on the inside of Nazim Asman. Asman just carried that speed right around the outside and then managed to carry the momentum into Westfield as well, which doesn't look like he was going to be able to do for a moment. Asman then fends off Benjamin Pedersen. There are the two who went side by side through Hawthorne last time through. But they, in the end, settled with Asman 9th Pedersen in 10th place. So, championship-wise, then Kian Jewis is the man that's actually second place in the points now on 177 points. He's 15 behind Kush Miney. Now, they've had really polar opposite seasons so far. I said earlier on that Miney hadn't won a race yet, although that might be about to change, given the way that he started this one. But he's had those 6 podium finishes. Kian Jewis has won a race, but that's the only time he's been on the podium. Every race after that, he's had a lot of top 5s. He's had, if you read through his results this year, 1st, 13th, 4th and 5th at Alton for Jewis, then 4th, 5th and 5th at Donington, sorry, 5th and 12th, excuse me, at Donington, and then a pair, in fact a trio of 5th place finishes for Kian Jewis this weekend. So Jewis has been very consistent, but hasn't had as many race wins as he might like. Kush Miney hasn't had any wins, but he's been even more consistently inside the podium places, and that's where he's got his 15-point advantage from. Jewis at the moment is 4th, so as things stand, would be set to lose another 14 points, and that gap would almost double. The prize you get for winning a race is pretty sizable, really, points-wise. You get 35 points for a race victory, so if your nearest championship rivals are anywhere outside the top 3, you're going to be taking over 10 points out of them. Well, Manaf Hijawi is going to be losing a lot of points in this one, unfortunately. Manaf was down in 18th in the points anyway. Of those that have competed at every round, he is the lowest scoring driver for Douglas Motorsport. Of course, Kian Jewis, although he doesn't run with the blue and white Douglas colours, Jewis is a Douglas driver as well, white and green 87. That's just Kian's personal preference. His sponsors as well like that livery. It's an 87 car racing for the same team as the second place car, released to power as well. So Douglas Motorsport, who lost 2 cars within about 30 seconds of each other in the previous race, have got 2 cars now running inside the top 4. So Bart Horston rounds out the top 5. The Lannon Racing driver, again, doesn't run the same colours as his Lannon teammates, but Bart Horston in the number 50 car, who was out in a kind of all-black car at Donington Park last time out after a result of a testing crash. So he was out in a car that was dubbed the Bartmobile by those in the know. A good name, I thought, and that car was going pretty quickly at Donington, but having a much better time of it here at Brands Hatch. Bart Horston's had a good haul of points with a podium in the second race yesterday, 7th earlier on today, and running solidly in 5th place right now. Lights, I think, are about to go out on the safety car because that stricken car of Hijawi's might be out of the way. He says, hopefully. Lights still flashing, so no, maybe not. We might have to... we're going to have another lap here. I think it's a bit late now to be turning the lights off. So, safety car's led more laps than anyone else today, I think. It's been one of those days, but that's often the way here at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. When you talk to drivers about this track and places like Alton Park as well, another example, one of the things they always say is that if you make a mistake, you're going to be punished for it. You're going to either hit something or get stuck in the gravel. And whilst you think that was a bad thing, actually the drivers really like it. It focuses the mind, and the more challenging a circuit is, the more enjoyment they tend to get out of it. So the fact that this place is so unforgiving, should you go off the road, is something that appeals to the drivers, but it does mean that if you go off, there's a strong likelihood you're going to end up with a safety car period, which is exactly what we're seeing here. But I'm now getting the message on the timing screen from Race Control that the safety car will be in this lap. So we'll go racing once again at the end of what will be lap number 5, with probably just under half of the race distance to go. So I'll remind you, it's Kush Miney that leads, Lisa Powell in second place, and Louis Foster, who is 6th in the points, and really couldn't do well. In fact, he's joint 5th with Nazim Asman. They're both on 155 points. That's less than 40 points off the championship lead. So if Louis Foster can maybe get himself up ahead of Ulysses Powell, then the double R racing driver Foster will definitely be finding himself back in the championship hunt, but they all are trying to beat Kush Miney at this stage, who is leading the field behind the safety car down Pilgrim's Drop and towards Hawthorns once more. Real shame about Ethan Simmons there, starting from the outside of row number 1, the car just not accelerating off the line, and would have been really nice to see he and Kush go toe-to-toe, because they've probably been the 2 quickest drivers here this weekend. I made the point in race 1 that Kush hasn't necessarily been the fastest driver this year. He's just been playing the system really well. Anytime we get a reverse, really seems to do well. Certainly at Alton Park, that was the way it went. He had a 14th place finish in the first race, but that put him on the second row of the grid for race number 2. He was able to use that to get a second place finish behind Piers Pryor and another second place finish on the Sunday. He's had a podium every day so far of racing, one on the Saturday and one on the Sunday at Alton, Donington and Brands Hatch. But can he get that elusive first victory? Well, we're about to find out, because with just less than half the race to go, the safety car is coming in, and Cushminey will head the field down into Paddock Hill Bend, up into Paddock Hill Bend as the case may be. He's gone already. Ulysses Powell wasn't able to react, and so Miney will have a bit of an advantage as they come through Clearways and Clark Curve once again. 5 laps in the book, and we're back underway again, and the real battle is the one for third. Louis Foster under attack here from Kian Jewis, who tries to find a way through on the brakes into Paddock Hill Bend. He's just not quite close enough though, and he's got to be mindful of the fact that Bart Horston is right behind him, and Sassacorn Chimancol. He goes to the outside into Druid. Big lock up from Benjamin Pedersen there, the 24 car, the Dirtfish liveried machine, as the Lannon cars are at play again at the back of the field. Piers Pryor trying to get the inside of Josh Mason, and he has now done it, so Piers Pryor gets himself out of last place and ahead of his teammate Josh Mason. There is Piers Pryor, the white car with the pink highlights. Is a race winner, like I say, but Piers Pryor actually had a podium in the second race at Alton as well. But Donington definitely this weekend haven't gone to plan. Disqualified in race 1, 13th in race 2, and non-finish in race number 3. So this is Josh Skelton then attacking Rhys Ushijima. In 7th position is Rhys, the number 13 car, the Japanese driver for High-Tech GP. High-Tech, of course, also running Cushminey's car, the 2 silver cars. Very simple but very good-looking liveries, I think, on those cars, and they're both running quite well. Ushijima has a couple of second-place finishes to his name as well. There are only 2 drivers racing here today who haven't yet had a top 5. They are Manaf Hijawi, who's not going to get one because he's out of the race, and the other one is Josh Mason. And Josh Mason, as we've just seen, has fallen down to the back of the field, so that stat isn't going to change. But we have had 14 different drivers finishing inside the top 5 so far this year, which is pretty impressive after just 10 races. 7 different winners, 12 different podium finishers. You can see why, because it's all so tight. They're all so evenly matched. If you give any one of them a good grid position, some track position, they've got the ability to go and get a race win or a podium out of it. The trouble is getting to the front when you didn't start at the front. That sometimes can be the real challenge. Cushminey then 1.2 seconds clear of Ulysses Powell at the end of the first full flying lap, all at 22.457. He's about a second away from the pace that we saw from the earlier races, but obviously slightly cold tyres, slightly low pressures after the safety car. You can see the field streaming down into Hawthorne. Real battling going on behind. Caleb Frederick there, then third in the championship, trying to keep Ollie Clark behind, and Piers Pryor rattles the curbs in the 22 car. That was a close moment. I think if ever there was a man with a point to prove, though, it would be Piers Pryor. He, as I said, has not really made many friends this weekend, and wants to, for sure, get back onto the tail of Caleb Frederick. Not to do anything untoward to him, but just to beat him in a wheel-to-wheel race, because, like I say, those two have had a couple of comings together this weekend. Right now, they're separated by Ollie Clark, but look at the way that Pryor has caught up this group now, having got past Mason at the start of the previous lap. He's now right with them, and Mason is just starting to drop away a bit. Across the line they go then. Nazim Asman getting away. It's the queue forming behind Pedersen, isn't it? You've got Pedersen 10th, Frederick 11th, Clark 12th, Pryor 13th. Those 4 drivers together, and Piers Pryor just ran a bit wide there. Maybe got a wheel in the dirt coming out of Paddock Hill Bend as they make their way back through Druids once again. Benjamin Pedersen cannot afford to put a foot wrong here. Made the point in race 1 that as you watch on your TV screens at home, it looks like they're all just following each other around in a big long line. It's only really when you watch trackside and you realise the input going into the cars. They're really having to fight the cars hard, and they are inches apart from each other. The slightest mistake from any one of these drivers will see them losing handfuls of positions, and because it's then so hard to overtake, it's almost impossible to get those places back. Also get a good view there as they come down towards you into Hawthorne of the camber on those front wheels. You can see the rather dramatic angle they run the front wheels at, just to try and help the handling, help the turn-in performance of the cars, but of course that also increases tyre wear slightly. Short sprint races, no need to really worry about tyre wear, especially with the safety cars we've had. We're already coming up towards 3/4 race distance now. The top 2 have escaped. It's really from third on back that's a bit tighter. Foster third, Jewis fourth, and then that man there, the Australian Bart Horston, comes out of Clearways and Clark Curves. That's scored Chimancol having another decent run here. Chimancol's best finish so far this weekend. He's had a 4th and a 6th and a 14th. He's running 6th again now. Kushmani, though, there's no keeping up with him. A 1:21.454 is now quicker than the lap time that gave him pole position for this race, and that is now the fastest race lap of the weekend so far for Kushmani. His previous best with a 1:21.487. He's just in a 4:54. So Paul now a second and a half over Ulysses Powell. He was actually quicker than him in the middle sector, though. So Ulysses Powell, again, only a second and a half back, despite how big a gap that looks compared to some of the gaps further down the field. If Miney were to make a mistake, Powell would be right back on his case. Kian Jewis, number 87, heads down towards us, into Hawthorne, flicks the car into the right hand, and that must be such a joy to drive in a high downforce, slicks and wings single-seater. Jewis just can't quite live with Louis Foster here. Well, he can live with him, but he can't get close enough to attack. And similarly, he's having to watch out for Bart Horston just behind him. But Kian Jewis will be, I think, still safe in second place in the championship. Yeah, there's no one in front of him that's going to overtake him in the points. So it will be Miney from Jewis, the top two at this rate in the points. Miney looking good for a win. Jewis looking good for fourth place. Another fastest middle sector for Ulysses Powell as Caleb Frederick closes in now on Benjamin Pedersen again, but he's been kind of close to Pedersen ever since the race restarted and not really able to find a way past. But he is in that slipstream. He's got Ollie Clark right underneath his rear wing as well. Turn back through. Oh, lock up there for someone in the top half of the field. Is that Bushijima maybe with a bit of a snatch break into Druids? Very easy to do. The car goes quite light there. As you turn into Druids, you're going uphill, and then it really plateaus as Clark with a look at the inside of Frederick. So Frederick far from attacking for position here, could lose one now. Ollie Clark really forcing the driver in front to defend. Caleb Frederick goes to the inside line, and the American driver will hang on the way into the corner, but he runs wide on the exit, and Ollie Clark is back in the slipstream again. So forget about Pedersen being under pressure from Frederick. It's now Frederick having to drive defensively to keep the number 62 machine behind. Into the outside goes Clark into Hawthorne. You can't go right round the outside there though, and off wide goes Piers Pryor, and he loses that place that he took away from Josh Mason a few laps ago. So Josh Mason gets back into 13th place now, and Piers Pryor cannot wait to go home, probably. If I were him, I might be tempted to pull into the pit lane a couple of laps early just to get a head start on the traffic. But as I said, as long as he finishes in 14th place, he will still score a handful of points. You get 7 points for finishing 14th. Piers Pryor with a weekend to forget here from Brands Hatch. 2 laps to go, and Kushmani 1.9 clear now after Powell in second. Foster, Jewis, Horston, Chivencole still in the same order behind. And Caleb Frederick weathered the storm there, kept Ollie Clark behind him. Ollie Clark in the hill speed car. There is Piers Pryor. He made that little mistake going through Hawthorne. Didn't quite see how that started. I think maybe he was anticipating he'd be able to take advantage of the cars in front squabbling. Beginning to wonder if it was Benjamin Pedersen I saw snatching a break into Druids last time, because he just did it again. And Benjamin Pedersen, that might explain why Caleb Frederick is applying the pressure to him. Back out of Surtees, down Pilgrim's Drop once more for what should be the penultimate time of asking. Louis Foster, the number 26 car, again gapping Jewis here, and Jewis falling back into the clutches of Horston. But it depends where we pick this battle up. Sometimes we pick it up and Horston's quite close, and then half a lap later he's dropped back again. Just the nature of racing these cars on a high-speed circuit like this one. Just the speed, actually, it's just that you can't really, there is only one line. You have no choice but to sit in the dirty air from the car in front. And so whereas sort of wider circuits, Donington, Silverstone for example, you can maybe try and experiment with your line. Last time at Donington, of course, we had wet races, which really did change the way the races felt, because you had quite a lot of potential to use different lines. You were going slower anyway, so the aerodynamics weren't quite as big a factor. Go through then onto what should be the final lap, although I have to say it will be tight. There was about 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the clock, and of course they're lapping in the 121, 122 bracket. Might just squeeze another one in. Good news for Caleb Frederick, because it gives him more of an opportunity to try and attack Benjamin Pedersen. Nazim Asman, his teammate, meanwhile, is starting to ask some questions of Josh Skelton. The head of the field, by the way, Ulysses Powell was half a second quicker than Kushmani that time. He got back down to 1.6 seconds, but you'd imagine Kush is maybe just stroking this one home. So there goes Benjamin Pedersen, still keeping Frederick and Ollie Clark at bay. And the Surtees back down the hill into Hawthorne. Running out of opportunities now, Frederick. He's got the toe. I think he is quicker than Benjamin Pedersen. Where does he get through? Hammers the curve there coming out of Hawthorne. He's closer now at this part of the circuit than he's been before. this is not where you do your overtaking. If you can stay here, though, maybe there's a chance into Sterling's or clearways. He's definitely close enough to start, forcing Pedersen to defend, and that's Horston. But Horston's gone off the road, and as he rejoins, he holds up Rhys Ushijima, and so Josh Skelton gets 2 places in 1. The checkered flag does go out at the very last second to Cushmine. He leads to Power is second, Louis Foster third, and Kian Dewis fourth. But what happened to Bart Horston? 3 wide to the start-finish line. Ushijima and Nazim Asman, and Asman gets him on the line. So that was for 8th place. It ends up with Chyman Cole 5th, Skelton 6th, Horston down to 7th, Asman 8th, Ushijima 9th, Pedersen in 10th place. So what happened to Bart Horston? He must have gone off the road coming out of Sheen Curve. Don't know for sure. We'll try and find out if we can, but that was dramatic stuff. And then you've got to feel for poor Rhys Ushijima, because as he saw Horston rejoining the track, he had to slam on the brakes to avoid hitting him, and Josh Skelton thought all of his Christmases had come at once. He gained 2 places in 1 on the final lap of the race, and Josh Skelton gets himself into 6th place. So Chris Diffin Racing have something to celebrate after losing arguably their best shot of a race win in the very start of the race with Ed Simmons' mystery mechanical problem. But Josh Skelton gets himself 6th place right at the end. Dramatic stuff. Cushmine, though, is your winner. He finally takes his first victory of 2020. It's his 7th podium finish, but it's the first time he's been on the top step. He holds on from Ulista Powell, who will be very happy after the disappointment of race number 3. He comes home 2nd. Louis Foster scores some good points in 3rd. Likewise, Kian Dewis in 4th. Saskia Chyman Cole 5th. Josh Skelton 6th. Bart Horston 7th, Nazim Asman 8th. That was where all of the shuffling went on the last lap, with Ushijima down to 9th position. So actually Asman got him, of course, on the line, didn't he? So that's another place lost for Ushijima. Pedersen 10th, then Caleb Frederick 11th. So he brings home 10 points, but again, he will be quite glad to see the back of Brands Hatch, I think. Ollie Clark 12th, Josh Mason 13th, Piers Pryor 14th, and then Ayrton Simmons will not be classified 15th because he wasn't running at the flag, nor was Manafi Jawi, both of them retiring on lap number 1. So, entertaining stuff. Cushmine will further extend his championship lead then. And this wonderfully consistent campaign, because surely now he has to commit to a full season. He's leading the highest level of single-seater competition in the UK with still just over half the season to go, admittedly, but he's looking like the man to beat right now. Mr. Consistency, but now that he's got that monkey off his back with the first victory, if he can keep on picking up the odd win as the rest of the year goes on, he could well be crowned champion come the end of the season at Silverstone. Certainly will be happy with a race win here. Here's some of the highlights of the race then. Ayrton Simmons getting away badly from the outside of row 1. Some sort of problem, maybe a gearbox issue, meaning that he was out of the race before it ever really began. That was a real shame for the Chris Diffin driver, who'd won twice already this weekend. It was Miney then that got the lead. De Pauw inherited 2nd place, having started 3rd, and Louis Foster and Kian Dewis slotted in behind. All of the action again was happening behind them, really. Side-by-side action between Benjamin Pedersen and Nazim Asman into Hawthorne Corner. Looked like Pedersen had it, but Asman carried the speed round the outside and held on to 9th position. Safety car came out at the end of lap 1 though, because Manaf Hijawi's Douglas Motorsport car had pulled over at the side of the road going down Pilgrim's Drop, and when the safety car came back in, Cushmine was on his toes immediately, pulling away from Ulista Powell to the tune of over 2 seconds at one point, although the gap did come down towards the end of the race. Caleb Frederick and Ollie Clark were doing battle. Frederick was trying to get past Benjamin Pedersen, but every time he attacked, he ended up under pressure from Clark, and then Piers Pryor ran wide, going out of Hawthorne's Corner. Then things calmed down again until the very last lap of the race, where Bart Horston had a moment somewhere, there it was, sideways at the apex of Sheen Curve. Oh, leaps into the air, very lucky not to hit the barriers, but as he rejoined, Rhys Ushijima had nowhere to go. Josh Skelton went past the pair of them, and Nazim Asman benefited too. It was Cushmine, though, who took his first victory of the season to extend the championship margin after a very successful day of racing here at Brands Hatch. Ulista Powell 2nd and Louis Foster 3rd. Join us again next time for more action.